Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Baby Lock, who remind you that you can support your local retailer by purchasing Baby Lock machines online. You'll find a variety of sewing, quilting, serging, and embroidery machines ready to purchase, along with notions, fabrics, and other goods and services. Visit babylock.com to find a participating retailer and see what they have ready and available for you.
Hi, welcome to Sewing with Threads, the monthly podcast from the staff of Threads magazine. I'm Sarah McFarland. I'm the editorial director of Threads, and I'm joined by our senior technical editor, Carol Frazier. Hi, Carol.
Hi.
And our special guest this month is Pamela Leggett. Hi, Pamela.
Hi.
Pamela is the owner and creator of Pamela's Patterns. She has a teaching and design studio in Vernon, Connecticut. She specializes in pattern fitting, working with knits, and she's taught sewing and serger techniques for more than 35 years. Pamela is the instructor for the East Coast Palmer Pletch Schools, a national sewing instructor, and an online teacher. We've worked with Pamela many times on 2 serger technique DVDs that were published by our publisher, the Taunton Press, and she authored the book Sewing Essentials, Serger Techniques with us. Well, welcome, Pamela. Thank you for being on Sewing with Threads again.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Well, it's always great to talk to you, and we need to see you more often. I want to come and visit your studio.
Been trying to do that for years.
Yes.
I know. Well, now at least we see a little bit what it looks like in your background there.
Yes.
So what have you been working on lately? And I should mention that we're talking to you at the end of May, 2020. So we've all been working from home for about 2 months, and it must have, everything that's been going on must have had a big impact on your business.
Definitely a big impact. I thought I was well diversified in my business and quickly found out that the majority of my income comes from teaching and traveling around and giving seminars and selling my products and so forth. So within a week, I had all of my events cancel, of course, from mid-March until, well, right now into September. And so it was a big change, all of a sudden to be home when I'm out traveling all the time. So for a couple of weeks, it was just trying to get used to the whole idea of it. And then all of a sudden, on March 27th, everybody started talking about making masks, and nobody could find elastic. But I happen to have fantastic elastic in my line of notions, which is a knit elastic that I sell 1.5 inches wide, and you can cut it down to widths down to 1/4 inch. And I was like, oh, I could sell this elastic. And before I even had the thought, the orders were pouring in. So for over a month, I did nothing but ship elastic. I had no help. My staff member, Jessie, couldn't come into the studio and, because of the virus and everything. So I was doing everything myself, packaging, shipping, doing everything. And it was a full-time job. So it was pretty crazy. Now it started to slow down enough. My assistant, Jessie, is back. And so I'm able to now tackle some other things like looking for to do online classes and so forth. But I am doing private online classes, which I had my doubts about how that would work, but it's actually working out really well. And everybody that I've done them with has said that it was very helpful. I've even done fitting and serger and all kinds of things. So, trying to adapt to it, but I can't wait to get back to teaching in person.
Well, can I ask you how the fitting goes when you're doing it via, I guess, an Skype or one of the other video chatting platforms?
I give so I'll just take, for instance, Mary Lou in Minnesota, who I've been working with. And she wanted to do my perfect t-shirt pattern, and she has a lot of fit issues. Mm-hmm. And even though my pattern has a lot of those things built in, she had even more. She's 85 years old. She has, the things that happen to a body, and they were just a little bit more extreme. So I had her She gave me her measurements. I gave her some homework, what she should do to the pattern to start, and had her cut out and baste one of the t-shirts together with the changes that I thought she should have. And then we met on FaceTime, and I looked at her from all angles, and, I was having her raise her arms, doing all this stuff, and actually just made some visual, presentations of what she should be doing. So when we got off of our call, I made a list with diagrams and instructions of what she should do to the pattern. And then we repeated the process. And it's worked out really well. So I think with her, it took us 2 times. No, we had our initial meeting and then 2 other times to get it just right for her. But it was more of an extreme case. And she said she understood that. She said she's had all of the experts helping her with t-shirts over the years, and this was the best one she had. And I felt like that was like the most wonderful thing I could have heard. So.
Yeah, I was asking only because I know that when you're looking at a garment to fit it, you're often evaluating how there are drag lines and the shadows that you see, and whether you could actually capture that well on FaceTime or Skype or one of the other platforms. It sounds like it was successful.
It worked great.
Yeah.
Well, Pamela, it sounds like you found some interesting ways to work around the circumstances we're in right now. And what else do you have coming up in your business?
Well, a unique opportunity, and I'm not sure if I have the name exactly right, but you said you could put it in the show notes. But at the end of July is the BraBuilders.com is doing the Great Bra Sewing Bee or something like that. It's a conference for several days, which is going to feature a bunch of other instructors that have lingerie patterns and teach and so forth. So I'm going to be featuring my Shapewear pattern, which actually debuted with the Threads article. Do you remember when that article came out, Sarah?
Oh, I do. I looked it up last night. You did a great article with us. It was called Make Your Own Shapewear, and it was in 183, which was February, March 2016.
Wow, that long ago?
I know. I was surprised too when I realized that.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't believe it. Well, kind of what started that whole thing, which is, I thought was kind of fun, is that Sarah asked me, well, I can't remember if it was Sarah or Carol asked me to do an article on reducers and like Spanx type shapewear. And I said, no, I don't like that stuff. It just squishes things where you don't want them, and nobody can keep them on. They're uncomfortable and all of that. And you said, well, what would you like? And I said, I just want something that makes me look smoother, not smaller. And so I thought maybe you'd be like, no, we want to get somebody who can do an article on these reducers. And you're like, no, let's do that. And then I thought, okay, well, now I have to come up with a pattern for it because there were none that I could see. And so this is the cover of the pattern right here. And it has 3 different pieces to it. So one is an underbust camisole. So you wear your own well-fitting bra. It goes around your bra so it doesn't squish you or anything like that. And then it comes down below your tummy. So the back of it comes all the way like to the edge of your shoulders here. So it gets rid of all the back fat, look. Well, I hate that word, back fat, but anyway, it just makes everything smooth all the way. So it's not like the ones that I had bought that were like that kind of cut in like a racer back, but then stuff like popped out of that. So I wanted something that would come all the way across, go all the way under my tummy, that kind of thing. And then the underwear as well is just a high-waisted, which in 2016, everything was still low-waisted. So it's high-waisted. I call it the Hollywood undies. And then there's also a slip that it's just the tummy area that it would be controlling. And the key to it is that the power net panels that are in it, don't go all the way to the seams. They are inside the seams and attached with a multiple zigzag stitch that stretches really easily. And the reason I wanted to do that is because I wanted you to be able to get them on and off with ease, not like some of the other ones where, you're sweating by the time you get them on. These have just that amount of give, so you can get them on and off, and they're not uncomfortable. You can wear them all day. And so forth. Now, the other problem was getting fabrics. I don't really want to be in the fabric business. I sell like full kits or partial kits, not even online, because I don't really want to do that much business with it. But if people ask, I can put together kits with nude fabrics. So the nude lycra, power nets, elastics, laces, tricots. But brabuilders.com, which is owned by Sue Foltz, she actually put together a whole line of kits for my patterns, and they're all, I don't even know how many colors, like 12, 15, 20, I don't know. She has so many colors, everything dyed to match. So all those products, the lycra, the power nets, the elastics, all of that. So you can go right to her website and you can buy these kits in any color that you want. So it's really kind of a neat partnership that we have.
Yeah, I was looking at that this morning. She has got beautiful things and a lot of elastic choices too. If you want a picot edge or whatever, I think that's actually really nice. So I wanted to ask about the undies. Do those have, what is the seaming like on those? Are they like a side seam style, or they look like they have a sort of front panel more?
Yes, so they have, there's actually a front panel, a back panel, and then a side panel. So
that all the seams are offset from your sides.
Yes, yeah. And for the conference, I'm actually going to debut like using that same pattern as a bathing suit bottom. So I'm going to show how you add the swimsuit elastic, and I'm going to make an extra high lycra waistband instead of an elastic waistband that comes up quite high. So that if you wanted to wear, a tankini over it, then you could do that. And I think I'm also going to make like an optional little skirt that you could make with it too, so you could wear it either or.
Oh, you've thought of everything. I appreciate that. You kind of want to cover up some parts. I mean, I'm kind of a sun phobic anyway, so I don't want anything in the middle to be out in the sun that hasn't been out in the sun for 40 years. So.
Well, I was thinking about this the other day, and I thought, if you're a bikini person, just plug your ears on this part, because it's not going to appeal to you.
Well, I have to say, my daughter has just gotten into sewing, and she's been making, she made a bikini top this past week with all underwires and everything. She actually used a bra pattern, I think, an old quick sew bra pattern that I had ages ago. And it was really the first time she'd followed a pattern without having me tell her everything to do. And it came out really great. But I hadn't really, I happened to have a scrap from Thread stash of some kind of a really good stretchy activewear or swimwear fabric that she could use. But when I just looked at the bra builders today, I thought I should direct her that way. She might want to start making her own lingerie in general. So Pamela, I noticed that you had another pattern that I think I like. I think it's a new one called the Cardi Cascade or Blazer. Blazer, what is it? Cascade Blazer? You better tell me what it is exactly.
It's called the Cascade Cardi and Blazer, or Blazer. Let me just see here. Or Blazer, sorry.
Or Blazer.
This is the pattern cover. So it started off a collaboration with Nancy Nix Rice. And she, of course, is the author of Looking Good and an image consultant that is totally amazing. And she had been trying to get together a ready-to-wear line that she could sell. And she was trying to find like small batch manufacturing in the St. Louis area. And she got so close and things just kept falling apart, which was really sad. She just couldn't get that small batch thing going on. So she said, how about if you make a pattern for this? And so I said, sure. She sent me her sample. And it was a lovely style, but it didn't fit very well, for my aesthetic. So I Pamela patterned it. Uh-huh. And I added in all of my fit things, the option for the fuller bust and the forward shoulder, the sway back, the shortening of the armholes, all the things that I like to do on my patterns. And so basically, I don't know if you can see, it does have kind of like this beautiful waterfall or cascade look on the front of the cardigan. And it can be made in ponte knits and lightweight knits and so forth. But then as I was playing with it, I had it made out of a ponte knit, and I started playing with it, and I went, oh my gosh, it could be a beautiful blazer as well with a few modifications. And it was perfect timing because, they're calling this the year of the blazer again. Oh. And so my idea was, as all of my patterns, I don't want any of them to take too long to make. So this is an unlined blazer, perfect for like your sturdier fabrics or a little bit heavier fabrics, but all still with knits. Perfect for ponte knits, or I did a beautiful one out of a sweater knit. I'll send some photos to you so you can put them in the show notes. And it just turned out very beautiful. So it has soft tailoring techniques, which I love, including interfacings and facings, buttonholes, or I found these really cool clips on Amazon. They're like, they remind me of like an old-fashioned hat pin, and they make a beautiful alternative to a button and a buttonhole. And I've been using those a lot. So it's been a really fun pattern. It's been well received, which I'm always happy for.
Yeah, I think Nancy had a sample at ASG last year, and I tried that on, and I really liked it. It wasn't my size, but I could tell that if it were in my size, it would have been great. It would have really worked well for me. So that's something, and I actually have ponte knit that is set aside for trying that pattern.
Yes. I think we all saw Carol in the jacket at that conference, and it was definite approval from everybody on the team.
I know. Well, yeah. Nancy also sent it to the office with a whole bunch of ponte knit dresses that were for a story that she wrote about ponte knits, and so we had a little fashion show, and I tried it on again then just to double check that it was good, and I did like it. The way that she made it though is interesting. She only turned and top stitched the edges, but I think that in your blazer maybe you have a facing. Is that true? Do you have is it faced?
The blazer is faced, but the cardigan is not. Yeah. So the cardigan, because you see both the right and the wrong side of the fabric, you really want to have a fabric that looks well both ways, because you will see some of the wrong side of it. And that one is just folded over and top stitched, and I've got really nice directions on how to do that. The blazer does have a lining in it. So the ones that she sent you were not the blazer style. It was the cardigan style.
Yeah. Although I have to say the effect was rather jacket-like for me. When I put it on, if you have the right fabric, like the ponte has some structure. So it really did read more jackety almost than it did. It didn't have any kind of slouchiness to it, which I think if you had a soft thing, you could get a beautiful kind of drapey soft effect too. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Pamela, one of the things I love about your patterns is that they're so easy to make. And another aspect is that I think you really offer wardrobe building patterns. So you have 2 other new designs. You want to tell us about those?
Sure. This one is super fun. And honestly, after the first time you make it, you can make one in about a half an hour. So I have it started off with me because I have a lot of sleeveless dresses that I've bought for, even some that I've bought, some that I've made, that I bought for like a wedding or whatever. And then they just sit in my closet. And I realized that the reason I'm not wearing them is because they're sleeveless. And I like a little sleeve. Everything is so cold in the summer when you go into a restaurant or whatever. So this one here is called Secret Sleeves. And basically, I guess you'd call it a sleeve dickie. If anybody knows, That might be an old-fashioned term, but basically this is a sleeve that attaches under your bra. Again, like with the shapewear, it doesn't go over your bra. So there's really no fitting to it at all. It's so easy. It goes around your bra and then clasps underneath your bra. This actually comes with the pattern. You get one of these little, they're like front bra hook clasps.
Yeah.
Yeah, the closure like you would have if you had a front hooking bra. And so you get one with your pattern, and then I've got more to sell online. And so it's just some fantastic elastic that is cut down to a narrower width, attached around the midriff and the neckline of this pattern. It's just a cut-on sleeve, so it's all like one piece. It's just one pattern piece. And you can make it to match a sleeveless garment that you have. So I've made them in all the basic colors. So I've got a navy, and I've got black, and I've got white and off-white. I've got some stretch lace ones. Like here's a stretch lace here.
Pamela, I know it will vary depending on the size, but approximately how much fabric does it take to make the secret sleeves?
I say a yard in the pattern, but you might be able to get away with a little less in the smaller sizes. But it's about a yard because it's all one pattern piece, which is nice. There's also an additional piece that you can have for the sleeve that gives you like a little flounce, which is kind of fun here.
Oh, that's cute. And so what is the back of it like? Is it like a sort of the upper part of a t-shirt with a scoop back neck, or?
Yeah, so the back neck scoops down quite a bit because if you were wearing something that was a little lower cut, you wouldn't want it to show. And if you had it something specific, it would be so easy just to cut it down a little lower. Just try it on before you put the elastic on if it needs to be lower. I've even worn this with tank tops and sleeveless tops and dresses and just all kinds of things. One photo that I will send you for the show notes is a dress that I specifically made out of a border print with a sleeveless dress, my classic t-shirt dress, and then intentionally made from the border print the sleeves to match. So it made a really nice outfit, so I could wear it either or. And I came up with these. I started making them when I went to Europe. I was in Italy a couple years ago. And we were going from the coast where it was really warm to the interior where it wasn't as warm in October. So it was really great to have those to kind of, stretch my wardrobe when I was traveling as well. So it's a lot of fun.
That makes sense. And I think cutting it as a one-piece sleeve is very sensible because then you don't have an arm size seam on that competing with the garment you're wearing over it.
Yes, there's no sleeve, no seam down the center of the sleeve or anything like that. Yeah. Neat. So it's for stretch knits. You want like a 4-way stretch knit to do it. But it's super fun, just a fun accessory. I think of it like an accessory.
Yeah, but that's actually a great idea. I have to say, I've been looking at patterns for summer dresses, and I've been skipping all the sleeveless ones because I know they don't have any real use for me after about mid-August. But I guess I could really think about using those if I made some sleeves to go with it or coordinate in some way.
The other pattern that I have is the cap sleeve shell. And I do so much with knits, and people have always asked me, hey, are you going to do anything with wovens? I have a couple of patterns that use wovens, but this one was based off of a shell that I bought from Soft Surroundings, which is a beautiful catalog and store. And I bought it years ago, and I realized that in my summer wardrobe, this was a top that I constantly wore. And when you constantly wear something, you like it. So I took the idea of the top that I had bought from them and came up with, again, with all the fitting things and so forth that go along with it. This pattern features working with soft and silky fabrics. So silks, polyester silkies, chalets, gauzes, and so forth. And people are afraid to work with those fabrics. The reason is because of the silkiness. It's hard to cut them out accurately. It's hard to sew them accurately. And especially when you're trying to do really fine edges, it can be very difficult. So what this pattern will do is it will teach you how to work with these fabrics more successfully. And the key thing for that, I feel, is getting the fabric stabilized. So I like to starch my fabric. You can either starch your entire yardage before you start, or you can work with starch as a spray and just starch the areas like the neckline and the armholes and the hems. I really think it's almost easier just to starch the whole thing, because then you end up with, when you starch your fabric, you start with a fabric that's very silky and very loose and very difficult to lay flat. And it becomes like a nice quality quilting cotton,
Uh-huh.
And then when you're all done making the garment, you just soak it, all the starch goes away, and you've got this silky fabric again. So it's really kind of neat to do all of the yardage. I like to use this product, Perfect Sew, and I dilute it. And so in the instructions, it will tell you how to do that. There's other liquid starches that you could try too. And then I also give you a recipe for making your own starch. So you can do it just with cornstarch and some water, and I give you the recipe for that. And then you can either use that in a spray bottle, or you can use it to soak your fabric. And what I think is really cool is that, I don't know how well this will translate, but here is like a polyester, really silky fabric.
It's very drapey, yeah.
Yeah, and then when it's starched,
much crisper.
Much crisper. So when I lay this on my table to cut it out, it really is, there's like hardly any give to it now, and it really will work like I'm working with a quilting cotton, what could be easier to cut out than that,
Oh,
I know. I hardly ever use quilting cottons, but since I've been making masks over the past couple of months, I've gotten them out again. I'm like, this is fantastic to sew with something that's stable and a little bit soft, not too heavy. Yeah. So what are the edge finishes like on that little top that you're showing? Are they a little facing or a binding?
You have 3 choices and you can mix and match them, which is really fun. So let's see here. Here is one, and this can be used on the neckline or the hem. And it's I call it a flange. So it's just this little flange on here. So it's a separate piece of fabric, and it's cut on the bias, and then it's stitched and top stitched in. And because it's cut on the bias, it won't ravel. So you don't have to worry about finishing it off. And you can make that even smaller than the one you see here. So it's just this little flange that sticks out and works beautifully. And here you can see on the curve, this pattern has a curved hem, which is really hard to do, you know? And so I wanted to make it easy. And this one will be foolproof. It'll turn out beautiful every time. You won't have any of the diagonal wrinkles that you get. Another one is a little teeny micro facing. Again, just using a strip of bias. You can see the bias in here. It's just bias that you're cutting from your fabric. I did it in a contrast here so that you could see it. But it's just a contrast of a strip of bias stitched on and understitched and then top stitched down. And again, those curves are just really beautiful and no wrinkles, which is nice. And then there's also an optional, like a small facing for the neckline if you would want to do that as well. And that one has an interfacing in it, lightweight weft insertion interfacing. So there's 3 choices. I've mixed and matched them. It's really nice. I right now I'm working on one that I'm making longer into I haven't decided yet whether it's going to be a midi or a maxi dress. but I'm just elongating it and making the hips a little bit wider.
Very nice. I think when you have that kind of a fabric, it often has a beautiful print that you want to work with, but you're a little bit afraid. And sometimes if you choose a pattern that has many complicated details, first, it's hard to sew. And secondly, all those details get lost and you don't have the beauty of the fabric is still there, but you've spent a lot of time sewing when what you really want to see is this pretty fabric in a beautifully finished garment. And it sounds like you will get that with this top.
Yeah. I believe so. I've been really happy with it. And since it got warm, all of a sudden I find that again, just like the original top that I based it on, I'm wearing them all the time. So that's a good sign for me.
Pamela, I wanted to go back a second to, you were mentioning liquid stabilizers and Perfect Sew. Do you have any advice for once you've treated yardage, how you let it dry? Because years ago we had an incident at Threads where our staff seamstress used some liquid stabilizer, but the fabric was hung unevenly to dry and it ended up drying off grain. And we had to sort of start the process over again.
Oh, okay. So I leave the fabric folded up. You don't really need much of the product when you're doing all of the yardage. So I kind of just leave the fabric folded and then just kind of place it in a bowl or whatever with the stabilizer, just getting it all wet. I let it sit in there for, like 10 minutes or so I know it's soaked up as much as possible. Then when I take it out, I'll just take that little kind of fabric package, roll it up a little bit just to wring out any excess, because anything that's excess I can use again. I just put it in a mason jar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't throw it away. I mean, it's, if you're buying the Perfect Sew, that's expensive, so I just save it in I've got my mason jar with the leftover.
That's a great tip. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just save what's left over. Then I'll take a towel and I will roll the fabric in the towel to get the rest of the moisture out. Now your shower bar is probably the best thing because, it's big, round. It's not going to make a crease. And so then when I hang it up, I just make sure that it's super straight. And I've not had a problem with it. I mean, it might be a little bit off grain, but then when you iron it, because it's going to be really wrinkled at that point, when you iron it, I feel like you can get it back on grain without any problem if you do it that way.
Do you let it dry the whole way and then iron, or do you iron it when it's still a little damp?
I let it dry all the way and then I iron.
Okay.
Now, I suppose I haven't had this happen, but I could imagine where there might be a fabric that if you let it dry all the way, it might be hard to get the wrinkles out. But I think what I would do is maybe just mist it a little bit or use the steam function on my iron, which maybe that's why it works, because I use the steam function on my iron.
Yeah, no, that sounds sensible to me. That it loosens it up enough. Yeah. Cool.
Oh, good. There are some silky fabrics in my stash that I need to get to. I avoid them too sometimes. Yeah.
I was surprised at how much of a stash I had for that same reason.
Yeah. I love the look of those fabrics. I love wearing them. But sometimes at the end of a long day when you really want to sew or you just don't want to deal with it. But I'm going to use my Perfect Sew. And I wanted to ask you about the fitting adjustments and the fitting options that you built into the cap sleeve top, because that is a pattern that I want to tackle myself. I always need that in my wardrobe, and yet the ready-to-wear versions never fit me. So how did you handle some common fitting problems in that?
Well, I noticed in the one that I had purchased, the armhole came down a little bit too low. And so when I would lift my arm up, you could see, I don't know that I could see my bra per se, but I could see skin under there that I didn't want to see. So all of my patterns do have the ability to shorten the armhole. And I feel like most women who have gotten to the stage in their life where, you've lost some height. Usually that height loss starts from the top down. So that area between the shoulder and the armhole does shorten up first. And so you could shorten the armhole on the pattern to get it so it fits nicer around. Also, another thing is I never like these cap sleeve shells that are just kind of straight across and they just kind of wing out at your shoulder. So this one has a very specific curve that goes around your shoulder, kind of like a raglan sleeve would have if it had that seam down it. Mm-hmm. So it's similar to that in the shape, so that it does follow your arm, which I think is a very flattering look. There's also a forward shoulder adjustment in it. So, it comes a little bit more forward. That seam is going to fall at the center of your shoulder instead of back. If it's back and you've got a seam there, it's going to look odd. So that's why it's there. There's also a little bit of a high round back. So none of us are really super flat on the back. And especially with a woven fabric, you would notice that more because it would stick out at the back neck a little bit. So there's just a slight high round back built in there so that it sits nicely around the back of your neck. There's also a little bit of a sway back adjustment so that it doesn't ride up on your hip. And there are also optional back darts if you wanted to put darts in for a little bit more shaping. Some people will need it, some people won't. But it's there if you want to use it. I always say pin them in first. Any darts, really, no matter what pattern you're working on. If it has those vertical darts, that doesn't mean that you have to use them. I would pin them in and see if you like them. And if it looks like it's pulling across your torso, you don't want to use them, or make them smaller. Or even what I call, like if you like the look of them, if you think it makes you look slimmer, do what I call the hint of a dart. So it would be almost more like a pin tuck, just to have that vertical line going down, but really nothing much taken out. And I think that most people, you can use them in the front, you could use them in the back, or both, or neither. It's kind of like, I think people need permission to know that even though a dart is in the pattern, it doesn't mean that you have to use it or that you can't change it.
Yeah. I feel like when you buy a commercial pattern, people need to remind themselves, and I think I've said this every time we have a podcast, those are designed for basically a dress form. They're not designed for you. And so you just have to make it be for you. And it seems like you figured out what a lot of people look like, how they differ from a dress form. You've built that in.
Yeah, well, I work with real bodies all the time.
Yeah.
Not that not everybody's body is real, but, just your average person. And, I forgot to mention that probably the nicest part is that there is a version for a smaller cup size and one for a larger cup size. And that one has a dart. And the dart it's not like a French dart where it comes all the way from the waistline, but it is kind of in between a regular bust dart and a French dart. Yeah. So it doesn't show up very much. It hardly shows at all in a print, which is nice.
I hope you'll be able to send us a photo of the sample that we'll put in the show notes.
I will. I will send a bunch of photos. You can decide what you want to do.
Well, Pamela, it's been so wonderful to talk to you. Thank you for being on Sewing with Threads again.
Thank you so much.
I hope that sometime this fall or winter or next spring that we get to come to your studio. I would love to enlist your fitting help.
I would love that too. Nancy Nix Rice wants to come when we do it.
Oh, that would be really fun. I want to do that too. Yes.
Yeah, we have talked about that, and we decided that we need to make it a whole thing,
Yeah. Oh, I totally have questions for both of you about all kinds of stuff. So
thank you for listening. Follow Threads on social media and visit threadsmagazine.com to view show notes for this episode. While you're on the site, check out Threads Insider, our online membership with exclusive access to expert sewing techniques. Until next time, keep on sewing with threads.